Alrighty guys, welcome back to Star Wars Review. Today I'm reviewing Star Wars The Bad Batch Season 3, Episode 12, Juggernaut, which was directed by Stuart Lee and was written by Ezra Nachman. It was released on April 10th, 2024, which I thought was a solid episode. Had some fun action, but I do wish we got a little more in it, but I still enjoyed it. I thought it sets the stage for the final 3 episodes well enough, which it picks up shortly after the last episode as Omega has turned herself in and has been taken by the Empire back to Tantus, which we see Hemlock greet her and take her to the lab where Emery is waiting for her to test her blood again, which once they get there, Hemlock tells Emery to do that, and she kind of stands there for a moment, not answering, which Hemlock asks her if there's a problem, which she says there isn't, and then prepares the blood sampling taking. While we see Omega ask Hemlock about Nala Se, which Hemlock tells her that Nala Se is now locked in a cell and won't be helping her escape again, but he then leaves telling them he'll be back once the test is done, which we then see Omega tell Emery she doesn't have to do this, trying to convince her to do the right thing. But Emery says she's sorry and doesn't have a choice, and then takes the blood sample, telling Omega that she's glad, she's safe now, which Omega questions that by saying, am I? Which I enjoyed the scene. Obviously continuing to see Emery be, more conflicted, obviously saying she doesn't have a choice, but she does. I wouldn't be surprised if she ends up, helping Omega like Nala Se does in these final episodes. But it then cuts over to the Bad Batch still on Pabu as the Empire is pulling back and leaving, as we see them regroup in the Archeum and now discuss on how to get Omega back, as Omega's plan was for them to capture her, and then Crosshair plan to track her on CX-2's ship, which Crosshair failed in doing so. So they have to come up with a new idea on how to locate Tantus, which Crosshair does have an idea, which is by going to Admiral Rampart, as Crosshair mentions that he sent Nala Se to Tantus, and so he should know the location, which Hunter does challenge Crosshair on why he kept this info a secret, which Crosshair does say he doesn't want to go back to Tantus, but also does say that Rampart isn't exactly trustworthy. But Crosshair does know the location of Rampart, as he says he's currently imprisoned in a labor camp on the planet Erebus, which right after this there's like a elevator thing what kind of comes out of nowhere, and the Bad Batch go on guard, but it turns out it's AZ and Fee who come up this hidden elevator, as I guess Fee kind of came there and saw the Empire and then used a hidden entrance. And there's then a nice scene of Fee meeting Crosshair, which she talks about how Tech describes him, and so it's fun. But Crosshair asks Fee if they can use her ship, as the Marauder is now destroyed, which she agrees to do so. And so on her ship, we see them coming up with a plan to find Rampart and get through the Imperial security, which they pinpoint this tower on the planet, which should have a terminal, which should give them the info on where Rampart is being held, and then they'll go from there. But we then see them get to the planet, and Fee kind of gets them through the planet's blockade, which is a nice fun scene. But they land, and then Fee kind of obviously flies away, waiting for the pickup. But we see them get to the tower and start looking for the info on where Rampart is, which during this we do see Rampart as he's working in some mines with some Ugnaughts who are arguing with him and whatnot. And it doesn't seem like he's really that good of a worker. But after he's done with his shift, we see him get taken aboard a turbo tank, which is when the Bad Batch are looking at the terminal in the tower, and they find out that he's currently scheduled to be transported. So they make up a plan to hijack the turbo tank, which they know they'll be located if they do it from the tower. So they kind of go down to the and they know they can't hijack the turbo tank from above, on the tower, as they'll get spotted. So they go down to the ground and hijack it from there, which, we see them board and take out some of the TK troopers. And Hunter goes to control the turbo tank, while Wrecker and Crosshair go for Rampart, which, they find him, take out the TK troopers, and then, start questioning him. But there's obviously all the other prisoners there, And, we see Wrecker kind of wonder what to do with them. So they stop the turbo tank and let the other prisoners out. But we see Crosshair question Rampart on Tantus. But Rampart says the only way he'll give them info is if they get him off-world. And so now they have to do that. But during this, the Imperials figure out that the turbo tank has been hijacked. And so they send, at first another turbo tank after them. And there's this cool scene of, the Bad Batch hijacked and that other turbo tank on a bridge going headfirst at each other. And, the Bad Batch takes the other one out and then uses it as a ramp to get over it. But eventually, after being chased, they get to this small, narrow passageway on the side of this cliff. And there, Hunter tries to contact Fee, but doesn't get an answer. And there's now gunships after them. And we see Wrecker kind of manning the guns, and he does take out some of the gunships. But some of the TK troopers are able to land on top of the turbo tank and take the guns out. So now they can't destroy the last gunship after them. But they do notice the TK troopers are on top of the turbo tank. So we see Hunter kind of wiggle the turbo tank around to get them off, which was once again another fun scene. But during all this, we see Rampart almost get to a blaster, but Crosshair catches him and stuns him. And so, now he's passed out. But like I said, there was still one gunship left and their weapons are down. And they're now running out of space, which is when Fee shows up and takes the last gunship out. And so they get to the top of the turbo tank and jump the Fee's ship, which one thing I found funny was because, like I said, Rampart is currently stunned and passed out. They're just throwing his body around and it's kind of ragdolling all over the place. It's quite funny. I quite enjoyed that. But Wrecker is the last one to jump onto the ship, and he does it just as the turbo tank starts to fall off the cliff, which I would think the Bad Batch would have learned to not put themselves in dangerous situations like this after what happened to Tech. But they all get onto Fee's ship and get away. And he says it's designed that way, but he says he does know a way around it. And once Rampart wakes up, they start to interrogate him, which it turns out he doesn't actually know the exact location of Tantus, which Crosshair threatens him to tell them or he'll throw him back into the labor camp, which Rampart's like, slow down, buddy. And it says that they're in this together now, which is the last we see of them in this episode, as the rest of it takes place on Tantus, which I do wish we maybe got one more scene of Rampart telling them what his plan is, but I assume we'll get that, right at the start of the next episode, and I assume probably the next episode will be about that. But the stuff back on Tantus, we see Emery finish the blood sample test, which comes back as a positive M count replication, which Hemlock comes in and Omega asks, what all of that means. And so Hemlock tells her that he'll show her. And so he takes her to the vault, which they get to the laser passageway where Hemlock kind of explains what's all going on. And he says that they can't completely replicate an individual's M count, as it diminishes greatly when doing so. But when they combine Omega's blood sample with one of those blood samples, it works perfectly, which, I assume they're talking about the Force-sensitive children they kidnapped. And so, I assume what this means is Omega doesn't have maybe a high M count, but, when they take her blood, her M count doesn't change. And so they can combine it with the Force-sensitive children and all work on what they're doing. But Hemlock tells Omega that she's vital to their work on Tantus, and he takes them to the room with the Force-sensitive children, which Omega asks, who they are, which Hemlock very evilly says they are the rest of the puzzle, and that this is Omega's new home as the doors slam shut. And then we get a shot from the observation area, kind of looking down onto the room. It kind of lingers there for a while, and then the episode ends. Like I said, I thought it was a solid episode. I really enjoyed the action scenes with the turbo tank and whatnot. I thought those were a lot of fun. I also thought it set the stage for the final 3 episodes nicely. And I liked seeing Rampart again, as, you know, he was the main villain of the first half of the series and, you know, just disappeared afterwards. And so it's nice to see his character return and seemingly have a big part in these final episodes. But, yeah, that's all I really have to say about this one. My grade, I'm going to give it a B. So, yeah. But next, I'll review episode 13. I think it's called Into the Breach. So you check that out then. But in the meantime, check out my reviews on the first 11 episodes and all my other Bad Batch videos and everything else to do but have been Star Wars review. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.
Secure her in a cell. Omega's been waiting for us a long time. Our mission is not over yet.
There is nothing of greater importance to secure the future of